Welcome to this video. There's a whole range of campaigns to choose from on Waalaxy. In this video, I'll show you how to create a multi-channel campaign combining both LinkedIn messages and emails. Only the business package will allow you to launch a campaign of this type, as it's the only one that allows you to find the professional email addresses of 500 prospects per month, enabling you to send them emails. If you followed the video where I show you how to get a 1-month trial on the business formula, you'll be able to set up this type of campaign. In Create a Campaign, then Browse Sequences. When you left-click on LinkedIn plus email, you'll see that there are a whole host of sequences combining email and LinkedIn. In this video, I'm going to tell you about one of them that I personally use and enjoy. This is the Star Trek Simplified Version sequence. You can now click on Select and I'll explain how it works. It may sound complicated, but you'll see that it's quite simple. With this sequence, we'll visit the prospect's profile and send them an invitation. There are two options. Either the prospect accepts the invitation, in which case he'll receive 2 messages on LinkedIn, and only one if he responds to the first, of course. Or the prospect doesn't accept your LinkedIn invitation. In this case, Waalaxy will try to find his professional email address. If Waalaxy finds it, he'll receive 2 emails. Same here, only one if he responds to the first, obviously. So why is this sequence interesting? Let's take an example. If you set up an invitation plus message campaign with 200 prospects over the week, i.e. the maximum quota, let's say you have an acceptance rate of around 30%. This means that 60 of the 200 prospects will receive a message. The remaining 140 who haven't accepted your invitation will never receive a message. By setting up the Star Trek campaign, Waalaxy will try to obtain the email addresses of those 140 people who didn't accept the invitation, bearing in mind that approximately 1 email out of 2 is found by Waalaxy. So in our example, 70 out of the 140 prospects would have received an email thanks to this type of sequence. To set it up, you'll see that it's very simple. We'll also have to import the prospects, then write the messages and fill in the deadlines. We'll look at that together. You'll need to select the list of prospects you've imported from Waalaxy that you wish to prospect for this campaign. In our case, we're going to select the Wren photographer list. Since, as you may have seen in another of my videos, we've imported photographers from Wren into Waalaxy. So that's who I'm going to use for this sequence. You'll have to select the prospects manually by clicking on the ones you want to import into the sequence. If you want to import them all, just click on Select All in the top left-hand corner, then click on Save. The first step is the profile visit action, but you don't have to set anything on that. The first thing you'll need to set is the delay between the profile visit and the prospect receiving the invitation, which in my case is 1 day. This means that the prospect will receive an invitation 24 hours after their profile has been visited, and then you have the option of attaching a note to your invitation. The note is a message limited to 300 characters that your prospect will receive with the invitation. Personally, I don't attach a note to my invitations. In fact, I had done some tests and it may seem surprising, but my acceptance rates were often lower when I included a note. Waalaxy had also carried out tests, and out of 10,000 invitations sent out by them to different profiles, such as CEOs, salespeople, and business developers, acceptance rates were generally 10% lower when a note was sent. It's up to you to see what works best. If you want to do as I do and not send a note, you don't have to do anything. Otherwise, just click on Invite and write your note. As a reminder, when sending a note, you'll need to be very concise, since there's a maximum of 300 characters. In Use Template, you can see that by default, you have a ready-made note that you can use if you wish. You can insert other variables in addition to the first name, such as the family name, but also the company name. In other videos, I'll be sharing my tips for creating notes, LinkedIn prospecting messages, and Waalaxy optimized emails. Once you've written your note, if you'd like to add one, just click on Submit. Next, for those who have accepted the invitation, you'll need to enter the time between the invitation being accepted and the first message being sent. In concrete terms, if the person accepts your invitation, they'll receive a message. If you set the date to 0, this means that as soon as they accept the invitation, they'll immediately receive the message. It's not great, it looks unprofessional, and it shows that there's automation behind it. What I do personally is to set a 24-hour deadline. So when the person accepts the invitation, they'll receive the first message in 24 hours. If you want to do the same, all you have to do is select a day. You'll then have to write your first prospecting message, then click on Validate. Next, you'll need to enter the time between your first and second messages. Obviously, if the person replies in the first message, they won't receive the second message. This is when they don't reply to the previous message. In my case, I generally set a deadline of 7 days. In other words, if the person doesn't reply to the first message, they'll receive a second message 7 days later. You'll need to enter the second and last message to be sent here. Next, you'll need to enter the time after the second message that it will take for the prospect who doesn't respond to leave the campaign. In my case, I generally set this to 10 days. So that's it for those who accepted the invitation. As for those who haven't accepted the invitation, with this sequence, we'll try to contact them by email. First thing to set for them. After how many days do you want Waalaxy to try to obtain their professional email address? Personally, I set this to 10 days. In concrete terms, this means that 10 days after sending the LinkedIn invitation, if the prospect hasn't accepted it, then Waalaxy will try to obtain their professional email address. There are two options. Either Waalaxy doesn't find the business email address, in which case the prospect leaves the campaign, or Waalaxy succeeds in finding the business email address, in which case you'll need to fill in the first email and click on Validate. Next, we're going to have to factor in the delay between the first email and the second. Obviously, if the person replies to the first email, they won't receive the second. That's if they don't reply to the previous email. In my case, I generally set a time limit of 7 days, i.e., if the person doesn't reply to the first email, they'll receive a second email 7 days later. You'll need to enter the second and last email to be sent here. Next, you'll need to enter the time it will take after the second message for the prospect who doesn't reply to leave the campaign. In my case, this is usually 10 days. Finally, all you have to do is make sure that everything's right with your campaign and click on Start. That's it for this video on how to create a multi-channel campaign on Waalaxy. There are many other multi-channel sequences. If you'd like me to show you more, please let me know in the comments. See you soon.